Emily Thompson quietly climbed the old wooden stairs of her family's Victorian house on the edge of suburban Boston. This 80-year-old mansion wasn't just bricks and wood, to her. It was her parents' love made real. She ran her fingers along the banister she had gripped so many times as a child. For a moment, she could almost hear her father's warm laugh or see her mother's gentle smile in the flickering hallway light. At 32, Emily still wore her simple navy suit, the same style she'd favored since her college days. Her soft brown hair was tied neatly behind her ears. As a senior accountant at a big firm in Boston, she earned a good salary, about $85,000 a year, enough to live, but never enough to feel truly free with the weight this house now placed on her shoulders. She paused by the landing and glanced through a stained glass window. The last rays of the setting sun painted the hallway in warm colors. Down in the big garden, the roses she had once planted with her father still bloomed, even in the chill of early spring. Whenever she felt lost, she tended the garden, pulling weeds, trimming roses, tiny acts that made her feel close to her parents again. Pushing open the front door, Emily whispered to the empty hallway, "I'm home." The house greeted her with cold silence. Years ago, it used to be filled with warm laughter, Sunday dinners, and her parents' voices echoing down the halls. Now, it was too big for her alone, but it was her promise to protect it, their family's last wish. Working late again? Patricia's voice floated from the sitting room. Her mother-in-law was sitting on the sofa, wearing an expensive silk blouse and sparkling jewelry. She used to be a private school teacher but now spent her days playing bridge and hosting tea parties, living off her late husband's insurance. She looked Emily over with a cool, judging gaze, never hiding the faint bitterness she felt toward her daughter-in-law. "Welcome back," Rachel's bright voice called from upstairs. Her sister-in-law leaned over the banister, nails painted, makeup perfect. She called herself a beauty influencer online, but the truth was she didn't work at all. All her flashy clothes and nights out were paid for by Emily's husband, Michael, her brother, who sent her thousands every month without a second thought. Her credit cards were maxed out long ago. Emily didn't answer them. She simply set down her work bag and went straight to the kitchen. She had been married to Michael for 3 years now. They had no children, and for the last 6 months, his mother and sister had moved in, changing the house's mood entirely. Michael used to come home on time, a stylish, polite architect who loved showing off his gold watch and shiny car. But lately, he came home later and later. He said he was busy with new real estate projects, talking big about redevelopment deals and fancy condos. When he was home, he hardly spoke to Emily but never failed to shower his sister with expensive gifts or praise her silly social media posts. Emily stirred a pot of soup and glanced at her phone. A message from her older brother, James, popped up. "How are you? I'll call this weekend." Her heart warmed for a moment. James, a sharp lawyer in Boston, earned a lot, much more than her, but he always found time for his sister. Since their parents died 2 years ago, he'd called her every weekend without fail, reminding her she wasn't alone. She looked out the kitchen window at the rose garden. This house was worth nearly $2 million now. It sat in a fancy part of Boston, and more old houses nearby were being torn down for modern condos. Developers kept sniffing around, offering tempting prices, but Emily remembered her parents' voices, "Protect this house, keep it alive." By the time dinner was ready, the house was quiet again. Patricia and Rachel both said they'd eat in their rooms. Michael sent a short message saying he'd be late, again. The long dining table, once filled with her parents and brother, was now Emily's alone. She sat there quietly, her food growing cold. After cleaning up, she stared at the big dark windows. Would her parents be proud of her? She wondered how much longer she could do this alone, working all day, paying the huge property tax herself, living under the same roof as people who looked at her like a nuisance. On a rare day off, Emily woke early. It was Patricia's birthday. Determined to at least honor her mother-in-law properly, Emily wore a new navy dress and walked to the nearby market the day before to pick only the best ingredients. By morning, the house smelled of butter and herbs. Under the dining room's crystal chandelier, she set fresh flowers, polished the silver cutlery, and laid out antique dishes she'd inherited from her mother. Roast beef, lobster bisque, wagyu steak. She wanted to make sure everything was perfect. She even ordered a special birthday cake and opened an expensive bottle of Bordeaux wine that had belonged to her father. Near noon, Rachel strutted in, phone in hand, perfectly dressed in the latest style. She peeked at the plates and sniffed. "I'm meeting my friends for tea later. I'll just have something light." She grabbed a juice and left the kitchen without even thanking Emily. Patricia came next, inspecting the dishes with narrowed eyes. "Well, this looks decent," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I do hope the seasoning is right, you know how I like things." Emily only nodded. She had asked about Patricia's likes and dislikes countless times. She always remembered. By 6, the party began. Michael arrived, smelling of expensive cologne, suit crisp and watch gleaming. Patricia wore a new silk dress and pearls. Rachel returned with shopping bags from her afternoon outing, laughing at something on her phone. Emily placed the roast beef on the table, checked the wine glasses, and forced herself to smile. Then she noticed the chairs, 6 around the table, but 7 plates. Something was wrong. Rachel raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Oh, Emily, you don't mind eating in the kitchen, do you? You must be busy anyway." Patricia gave a delicate laugh. "Yes, dear, you can handle that, right? You're so good at helping." Michael didn't say a word. He just checked his watch and avoided her eyes. The relatives who came looked away awkwardly. Emily stood there, frozen. Then, for the first time in a long while, she straightened her back, her eyes calm but burning with a quiet fire. "It seems I'm not considered family anymore. Please excuse me," she said softly but firmly. She turned away, climbed the stairs, and shut her bedroom door behind her. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. James picked up on the second ring. "James, I think this is enough. I can't keep doing this," she whispered. "I'm on my way," James said, his usual calm voice carrying a sharp edge. Downstairs, the party continued, soft jazz playing, wine glasses clinking, but no one knew the calm lawyer in an expensive suit was about to walk through the door and drop the truth like thunder. An hour later, the doorbell echoed through the house. James stepped inside, his briefcase in hand, his eyes cold and steady. Under the chandelier's light, he spread stacks of documents across the antique table, bank records, secret contracts, hidden transactions. Every sheet of paper exposed the truth. The house was being secretly sold for millions. Michael pocketing money behind Emily's back. Patricia promised hush funds. Rachel guaranteed a condo and luxury living for life, all of it planned while Emily worked late nights to keep the house standing. Michael's face turned pale. Patricia's perfect smile cracked. Rachel dropped her designer bag on the floor, forgetting her social media pose. Standing beside her brother, Emily finally felt her heartbeat slow. The house, her parents' voice, the roses outside, she would keep them alive, no matter what. This was her home, and she would fight for it. In Emily's eyes, the house wasn't just old wood and bricks, it was the last piece of love her parents had left to protect her. As James, her older brother, stood in the big dining room and read their parents' will, each word landed like a stone on the people who had tried to steal that love away. "First," James said firmly, holding up the thick legal paper, "there's a rule that says Emily must agree in writing to any sale or major change to this house. Without her signature, nothing can be done." He paused and looked at Patricia, Michael, and Rachel. Their faces, once smug and dismissive, were now pale with worry. "Second, the will says this house can't be sold for 20 years, unless there's an emergency or both siblings agree." Patricia's perfect smile was gone now. Rachel's eyes darted around the room. Michael looked down at the floor, his expensive watch now seeming useless. "Third," James continued, "if anyone breaks these rules, they can be punished, not just with fines but with criminal charges." 2. A nervous cough came from Patricia. She tugged at her necklace as if it could shield her from the truth. "And fourth," James said, his voice calm but strong, "any big decision about this house must be agreed upon by both Emily and me. This was our parents' wish, they wanted us to protect this home together." The room fell silent. Emily felt the heavy truth settle on the dining table like a weight lifted from her shoulders. She had never felt so safe, or so strong. James placed the paper down. "If you break these rules, you could be arrested. And about the money Michael already took from the developers, it looks a lot like fraud to me. The bank records don't lie." Patricia gasped. "Wait, you'd really go that far? Press charges? What will people think of me? My friends, my bridge club?" Her voice cracked. Her world of fancy clothes and afternoon teas was crumbling in front of her eyes. Michael stepped forward, trying to put on his old charming face. "Emily, sweetheart, let's talk about this. We're husband and wife, aren't we? Surely we can settle this quietly." But Emily looked at him with eyes that were calm, and done with him. "It's too late," she said softly. She stood straighter. For years, she had carried this house on her back alone. Now she knew she didn't have to. James pulled out more documents from his briefcase. "The lawsuit is ready. The defendants are Michael Thompson, Patricia Thompson, Rachel Thompson, and the development company. And we're going to the police too. The money trail is suspicious enough for money laundering charges. We've already started freezing your assets." The decorated dining room, once prepared for a fancy birthday dinner, now felt cold and sharp. The birthday cake Emily had made with so much care sat untouched on the table. The expensive wine bottle remained unopened. No one could even look at it. "And here's my final warning," James said, standing tall like the top lawyer he was. "If you try anything else illegal, we will act at once. You have 24 hours to leave this house. We'll pack your things later." Patricia sank into her chair, her head in her hands. Rachel burst into tears, wiping her eyes with her designer sleeves. Michael just stood there, stunned, his dreams of quick riches slipping away. The party was over. Emily stepped away from the tense room and stood by the window. She looked at the rose garden her father had helped her plant so long ago. The evening breeze touched her face gently, as if her parents were saying, "You did well." In the glass, Emily saw her reflection. She looked stronger than she ever remembered. 2 weeks later, Emily sat across from James at his big law office in Boston. Papers for her divorce were spread out neatly on the table. The morning sunlight poured in through tall windows. "This is the final plan for splitting the property," Emily said. Her voice, once so soft and unsure, now held steady strength. James nodded proudly at his sister. She was no longer the quiet wife who stayed in the shadows. James showed her new files. "Turns out Michael's betrayal went deeper than we thought. He didn't just cheat you. He lied to clients, overcharged on projects, hid money, even dodged taxes." Emily listened quietly. On the computer screen, evidence popped up one by one: emails from angry clients, fake design drawings, secret bank transfers. Michael's proud name as an architect was finished. Patricia's secrets had also come to light. Old newspaper clippings told of suspicious insurance claims from her late husband's death, fights with other family members about money, debts she'd hidden for years. Her classy reputation was all for show. Even Rachel's glittering online life fell apart. Behind her selfies and sponsored posts were fake luxury goods, hidden debts, and credit card fraud. The truth was she owed over $1 million, money she could never repay. Bankruptcy was the only way out. News of the scandal spread fast. Headlines read, "Prominent architect's family in real estate fraud scandal." Michael's clients vanished overnight. His fancy suits were sold off to pay lawyers. His big watch ended up in a pawn shop. He now worked in a small firm as an assistant, a nobody. Patricia left her city apartment and hid away in a quiet nursing home. Her days of fancy tea parties and bridge gossip were gone. Rachel moved to a small town, working behind a store counter to pay off debt. Her social media deleted, her followers gone. Back in Boston, Emily's family home found new life. The city agreed to protect it as a historic building. Visitors came to see the beautiful old house and its famous rose garden. Neighbors stopped by to thank her for saving a piece of their town's history. One sunny spring day, Emily sat in her garden, pruning the roses. Each new bloom felt like a quiet promise that life would go on, and be better than before. "Coffee's ready," Sarah called from the kitchen. Sarah, Emily's new friend, often visited to help with the garden or bring fresh pie. They'd met at the local history society, a place where Emily now shared her story and her hope that other old homes could be saved too. Emily took off her gardening gloves and looked around the yard. A new bench sat under the biggest rose bush, a place for neighbors and children to sit, read, or just rest. Soon, local kids would arrive for a tour. They loved hearing how one old house could hold so many stories. James called that afternoon. "Hey, sis, dinner tonight?" "Of course," Emily said with a soft laugh. Family dinners were regular now. A real family, not built on lies, but trust. She hung up and looked out at the sunny yard. Somewhere out there, Michael was living a small life in a rented apartment, trying to rebuild a name he had destroyed. Patricia lived quietly in her nursing home. Rachel worked long hours at a store. No more fancy clothes, no more bragging posts. Emily felt no hate for them anymore. They had chosen their own paths. She walked back inside, past the polished banister and the bright stained glass window. The house was alive again, stronger, warmer. So was she. Standing by her parents' photo, she whispered, "Thank you for giving me this strength, this home, this new life." Outside, the roses swayed gently in the breeze. Sunlight poured through the old windows. Emily smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. Her parents' last gift had done its job, and now, Emily was ready to live, truly live, in the home they had trusted her to protect.